Our story opens with a glimpse in the future, 10 years from now, in the Eastern Federation Kingdom. In this timeline, the kingdom is destined for complete annihilation at the hands of the five great sins. Wielding overwhelming power, they would trigger a massive explosion that would alter the course of history. Following the blast, the entire kingdom would be reduced to nothing but dust and ruins. To prevent this catastrophe, one man is devising a truly ambitious plan. His strategy involves becoming the patron to the future villains, looking after them while they're still children. He never imagined, however, that this mission would spiral into such a monumental challenge. Meanwhile, inside a luxurious mansion, the pages of a book are being turned. The protagonist reveals his former life as a corporate drone, now reincarnated into a noble family. The catch is, he's illiterate, possesses no special powers, and is currently holding the book upside down. A moment later, a butler informs him that his meal is served in the dining hall. After a hearty meal, the satisfied young man is offered help with his bath by a maid. Though initially surprised, the MC quickly embraces his new life as a spoiled and useless young master from a wealthy family. Lounging in the tub, he muses that this is the good life, even if he's clueless about his exact whereabouts. The maid then mentions that the other young masters will return tomorrow, leaving our MC thoroughly confused. She clarifies that she means young masters Leo Antonio, wondering aloud why he seems unfamiliar with his own family. Upon hearing the family name Palacio, a sense of dreadful and sinister familiarity washes over him. In a sudden fit of panic, he plunges his head underwater, causing the maids to freak out. Submerged, it dawns on him he's inside the world of the game Psychedelia. Psychedelia is the very setting for the five villains he must prevent from rising to power. This turn-based RPG was a game our protagonist was absolutely obsessed with. He'd pour all his free time into it, often pulling all-nighters to level up his character. In the game, regardless of the path chosen, the five great sins would inevitably appear. Their arrival spelled doom for the kingdom, the nobility in all its cities. And of all the noble houses, the very first to fall was always the Palacio family. The young man drops to his knees, horrified as he knows this dysfunctional family all too well. Investigating the dark secrets of the Palacio household was one of the game's earliest quests. Now standing before the mansion, he can't believe his rotten luck to have landed right here. Making matters worse, his new identity is Alan Palacio, the third son and a disposable minor villain. Lying desperate in his bed, he pleads to return to his former life as a wage slave. Our MC begins to cry, lamenting that he'd prefer a late paycheck over meeting his end in 10 years. He also grumbles about how other protagonists are gifted with powers while he arrived with nothing. But then a crucial detail about his situation flashes through Alan's mind. Since he knows the future, he has the power to stop the world's destruction before it begins. With the goal of securing a peaceful, noble life, he resolves to reform the five great sins. Alan foolishly assumes it will be easy since they're only children, completely forgetting a critical detail. 2 months later, we learn he's rescued a group of orphans from a human experimentation facility. He placed a girl named Yuchia in charge and is now conferring with his knight, Evan. The young master commends his knight, acknowledging his impressive skills. Evan seems a bit baffled, asking if that was a genuine compliment, as Alan's blank expression is hard to read. Flashing a painfully forced smile, the MC says he looks forward to working with Evan. The knight finds this odd, recalling how his master used to be an open book emotionally. It then occurs to Alan that his consciousness took over the body, but his facial muscles didn't get the memo, hence his inability to smile naturally. Regardless, Evan accepts the praise, and our protagonist reflects on hiring him specifically for his unwavering loyalty. The knight then inquires if the entire operation was orchestrated just to save the girl, Yuchia. As a seasoned ex-mercenary, Evan notes that she was far from an ordinary child. A brief flashback shows the moment he discovered her in a cell with other orphans. Even chained, the girl radiated a powerful aura, and he couldn't fathom why she'd allowed herself to be captured. Back in the present, Evan questions his master's decision not to bring her to the mansion. The protagonist knows that leaving her behind might look like neglect, but it's a calculated part of his plan. The truth is that girl is Yuchia Bludia, who bartered with an otherworldly entity for immense power. In the original timeline, she becomes Wrath, one of the five great sins, responsible for the end of hundreds of thousands of lives. Alan, however, believes that a peaceful upbringing will prevent her villainous turn, effectively neutralizing one major threat. Now, he just needs to come up with a good excuse for his knight, who's still patiently waiting for an answer. The young master adopts a serious expression and states that the time is simply not yet right. This cryptic response leaves Evan utterly confused, wondering what it could possibly mean. Alan then commands that the topic be dropped and orders funds to be sent to support the orphanage. He also hands over a letter for Yuchia, and his knight asks if it contains anything important. The young man dismisses it as a simple note to check on her, which Evan interprets as a letter of comfort. Following his orders, the knight rides off, while Alan watches from his office window. Gazing out the window, the MC thinks that even if it's a long shot, attempting to sue the girl is worth the effort. In reality, the letter's purpose was to use a quote he'd heard repeatedly in the game. It was a kind of charm used by an archbishop in an attempt to pacify the villainous Wrath. This all played out during her character arc within the game Psychedelia. In the game's story, however, the girl was too consumed by her power, making any attempt to save her futile. Consequently, every effort to calm her down failed, inevitably leading to a battle. But now, in this reality, Alan is convinced there's still a chance to alter her destiny. The idea of befriending a monster with a mirror quote seems silly, but he's willing to take the risk. After all, these beings worship otherworldly gods and possess a bizarre way of thinking. Concluding they are essentially fanatics, we cut to Yuchia receiving the fateful letter. As he delivers the message, Even is struck by the girl's incredible and overwhelming mana. He views her as a strange, emotionless child while she quietly reads the letter. The little girl then looks up and asks if Lord Alan himself truly sent this message. Abruptly, her demeanor shifts to explosive rage as she demands to know why he doesn't want her with him. Even is utterly terrified by the crushing pressure of her mana. He recognizes that manifesting mana with such intensity is a feat only achievable by those in the Master Realm. Unsure of what to say, the knight recalls the excuse his master provided. Stammering, he repeats Alan's words that the time is not yet right, which instantly calms the girl. The letter contained the exact phrase from the game, serving as a secret code between them. Yuchia clutches the letter to her chest, believing it's a promise that only her master could understand. The knight's jaw drops at the shift in the girl's aura, finally understanding the hidden message. He now realizes that this girl is the Blood Queen Yuchia, the feared future villain of Wrath. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, our protagonist rests easy, content with having bought himself more time. He feels a surge of motivation, and even the moon seems to be cheering on his grand plan. Sometime later, the young man is in the library searching for clues, nearly getting buried under a pile of books. Just then, his knight finds him in his frustrated state and reports that the second child has been rescued. The young master asks if the boy was handled with care, and Evan confirms he was saved. During the raid on the illegal slave market, Evan had caught a glimpse of someone fleeing with incredible speed. All of a sudden, a man appears in the library. It's Tonio, the second son of the Palacio family. The older brother mocks the MC for holding a book, knowing he can't read. He grabs him aggressively, and our protagonist quickly considers how the original Alan would have reacted. Based on that, he decides against fighting back, bowing and saying he was just on his way out. Full of himself, Tonio adds insult to injury by kicking his younger brother while he's down. But out of nowhere, a dagger whistles through the air and embeds itself in the wall, inches from Tonio's face. The newcomer orders the insects to quiet down, leaving Tonio completely stunned. This is Leo Palacio, the eldest son, who has no patience for drama so early in the morning. Leo glares at Tonio, telling him to ditch the Playboy act and adding that he stinks. Our MC recalls that in the game the Palacio family met a swift end, yet their influence was enormous. In essence, his two despicable brothers are locked in a bitter struggle to become the next head of the family. To complicate things further, Leo is a colossal figure in the underworld, known as the King of Seduction. Tonio is no slouch either, managing a cartel under the moniker King of Goods. Witnessing their confrontation, the protagonist makes a swift exit, wanting no part of their madness. With his knight's help, the MC decides his best survival strategy is to play the part of an incompetent weakling. He collapses onto a sofa, utterly drained, as Evan mentions that the second rescued child was also far from ordinary. The young master lies there, seemingly lost in thought, while his knight observes him. This leaves Evan deeply intrigued, wondering how his master is privy to so many dark secrets. Noticing the young man's exhaustion, the knight concludes he must be overexerting himself. Remarking on how strange his master is, he confirms the rescued child has been safely delivered to the orphanage. The protagonist then reflects that calling the boy unusual is an understatement. He's a catastrophe-level threat. In this kingdom formed by a union of nations, the central power is the kingdom of Kallian. And the boy they just saved from the slave market was none other than the game's second major boss, Dusmakalian. After being sold into slavery, the boy endured immense suffering, being passed from one owner to another. This relentless torment twisted him into the living embodiment of one of the sins, sloth. In the future, he was destined to become unbelievably powerful, annihilating entire kingdoms in the most horrific ways imaginable. But contrary to his title, he was diligent, which is why the MC had insisted on treating him with kindness. The reason for sending him to the orphanage was the same as before. The time still wasn't right. In his letter to Yuchia, he had made small talk and included a special request. The young man had asked her to look after a new child he was sending, who was a little unwell. At the orphanage, we find little Deuce sitting alone, ostracized by the other children. In that moment, a figure approaches him. It is Yuchia, who has come to find him. Approaching the boy, Yuchia remarks that he is utterly broken and devoid of hope. She glances at his hands, recognizing the marks of a grim and potent dark ritual. The girl then asks if the ritual of the black goat was what left him in such a pitiful state. Despite his condition, she congratulates him, for the great moon has chosen him through all his trials. With that, she urges him to embrace the power he's been granted and unleash his hidden potential. She extends a hand with a sinister grin, promising that if he pledges loyalty to her master, the boy will finally achieve his long-awaited vengeance against all who have wronged him. After delivering her message, she takes his letter and decides it's time to send her first reply. Along with her response, the girl adds a small, heartfelt greeting for her master. Meanwhile, at the Palacio family mansion, the daily routine of luxury and intrigue carries on. Our MC is enjoying a rare moment of peace when his knight bursts in, frantically shouting that something has gone terribly wrong. Ivan is so flustered that he almost calls the second master trash right in front of the protagonist. Completely baffled, the young man asks what on earth happened to his dear brother. It seems his brother Tonio was discovered lifeless on the floor of the mansion. We then see the funeral for the second son, attended by few who genuinely mourn his passing. Their father, Count Palacio, is present with two women, looking exceptionally bored. Alan observes the grim scene, thinking his family is truly rotten, straight out of a dark fantasy novel. Looking at the casket, he finds the story of an accidental fall suspicious, as that's not how it happened in the game. In the game's timeline, the older brother, Leo, would eliminate Tonio years later to secure his position as heir. At the funeral, Leo wears a triumphant smirk, and the MC instantly knows he must be the culprit. Regardless, Alan isn't particularly concerned with the family power struggles within the mansion. His sole focus needs to remain on his true objective of resolving the threat of the five sins. A year goes by, and with the succession issue settled, a sense of tranquility has fallen over the mansion. We then see our protagonist and his knight sipping tea, enjoying the newfound calm. During this time, the MC and Yuchi have become pen pals, allowing him to keep tabs on her. In her latest letter, she shares that the children are thriving, and he finds her descriptions of them endearing. The end of the letter also included a list of new patrons for the orphanage. Evan notes that the list has grown longer, and our young man agrees that it's excellent news. The knight then shifts topics, revealing that the Information Guild has found a lead in their search. The young master breathes a sigh of relief, as this means he can finally locate the third boss from the game. Everything was proceeding smoothly, and our MC was settling in for a quiet, peaceful evening. But that peace is abruptly shattered by a scream of despair and a gruesome discovery. At a distribution center for goods, a few men are commenting on what a generous boss Leo is. Their organization boasts hundreds of members, but suddenly chaos erupts. One of the henchmen finds himself under control, forced to attack his own partner against his will. The man screams for help, powerless to stop the rampage he is forced to carry out. The pandemonium continues as all the gang members turn on each other in a brutal frenzy. A lone survivor begs for help, but a mysterious figure simply watches the carnage from a distance. It was Little Deuce, orchestrating the entire scene and reveling in his puppet show. Standing beside him, Yusha questions the point of all this, but the boy simply ignores her. Diz asks if Yusha feels pity for these men, but she clarifies she just dislikes them for exploiting people. The boy then explains this is all to prepare a space for their master's return. The girl agrees that the place must be made immaculate for Alan's arrival. Combining their powers, they generate an enormous fund of energy at the location. The two then take flight, declaring that everything will proceed according to their master's will. In the aftermath, a colossal explosion wipes the entire district off the map. The symbol of the blue moon is seared into the ground as they declare themselves the sword of their lord. 2 more years pass, and our protagonist continues his correspondence with Yuchia. Back at the mansion, Ivan is frantically searching for his young master. He finds him in the yard, and the young man greets him with a casual air. The knight reports that the 5th and final target has been safely delivered to the orphanage. Alan feels a wave of relief, knowing that in the intervening time, the other 3 remaining sins were also secured. The young master offers his knight a piece of cake, which he gratefully accepts with a full mouth. Finding the sin of greed had proven difficult, but after a year of searching, they finally succeeded. The MC tells Evan he's done excellent work and can now rest, as the orphanage mission is complete. With Alan's confirmation that their work is done, his knight can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Evan then asks why his master doesn't seem more pleased that the mission is over. The protagonist insists he's smiling, though his perpetually blank expression says otherwise. Getting to his feet, Alan stretches out on the lawn, soaking in the sweet taste of victory. He lies back down, thinking that everything has gone even better than he had anticipated. A montage shows the bosses from Psychedelia, each with a past steeped in suffering and pain. It becomes clear that they all became the 5 great sins as a result of their tragic backstories. The odds of perfectly saving all of them before these tragedies unfolded were practically zero. This is why the MC prioritized rescuing them before they were pushed completely over the edge. Evan hands him a letter, and the young man asks for an update on the orphanage. The knight reports that the children, who once seemed like broken dolls, are now doing much better. Hearing this, Alan decides there will be no need to hire additional caretakers. He hadn't expected Yushia to manage everything at the orphanage so competently on her own. It might be due to her in-game personality, which gave her a strong attachment to the place. Seeing it from this perspective, he realizes Yushi is a good person at heart, just as Evan asks about the letter. In it, Yutia writes that the children are growing up well, and that there's no need to worry. A sense of pride swells in the young man, who concludes that a positive environment truly makes all the difference. This piques Evan's curiosity, and he asks when the young master plans to finally meet the children. The protagonist averts his gaze, revealing he has no intention of meeting them face to face. The process of becoming a sin is horrifying, and their original personalities were terrifying. Even though he saved them before their powers awakened, he's still deeply afraid of them. He suggests that perhaps in another 5 years, he might muster the courage for a meeting. Regardless, the MC resolves that in this dark fantasy world, he must learn to protect himself. Fortunately, he has a knack for magic, which is when his knight asks if he's heard of the Blue Moon. Alan has never heard the name, so Ivan explains it's a group dedicated to hunting criminal organizations. The MC thinks it sounds like a worthy cause but dismisses them as irrelevant to his knowledge, predicting they'll soon fade away. But even adds that they've already taken out nobles, which is why he thought his master might be aware of them. Now feeling uneasy, Alan instructs his knight to sleep in the adjacent room as a security measure. Meanwhile, at the Blue Moon's base within the orphanage, the children convene for their weekly report. One of the girls asks about the northern sector, and Sealang, the Sin of Pride, confirms she handled it. She boasts about wiping out the slave traders without her identity ever being discovered. Following her, Rhine, the Sin of Greed, reports that she disposed of all the bodies cleanly. She also confirms the southern sector has been pacified and the illegal labs are no more. And Raidan, the Sin of Purity, announces that the Avalon gang has been dismantled without a trace. Yuxia is pleased as everything is unfolding according to her beloved master's will. The group then declares themselves the Blue Moon, worshippers of the Great Moon, existing for its glory. Suddenly, however, a complication arises and Yuxia wonders what could have possibly gone wrong. Deuce reminds her that Avalon's leader is the eldest son of Count Palacio. During the southern cleanup, a document was discovered that suggests Leo is plotting something. Yuxia becomes enraged at this news, unable to believe someone would dare to move against her master. All the other members of the Blue Moon snap to attention, ready to act at a moment's notice. The girl prepares to deliver a harsh lesson to the eldest son of Count Palacio. She will not forgive anyone who dares to interfere with her cherished master's plans. The tension in the air is thick as they all await Yuxia's command to launch their attack. Their master's honor is on the line, and the Blue Moon will not let the transgression stand. The document detailed a plot to eliminate RMC after the Count was taken out by poison. Yuxia furiously crumples the paper, agreeing that they must take immediate action. 2 years later, Count Palacio passes away, and we witness his sparsely attended, emotionless funeral. The official cause of his passing was cardiac arrest, though given his habits, it was an expected outcome. During the service, the MC overhears talk of yet another Blue Moon attack and is taken aback. Apparently, the group staged a nighttime ambush and completely annihilated another gang. This latest incident has finally forced the authorities and nobility to take the Blue Moon seriously. The Count's funeral concludes in silence, with hardly anyone mourning his departure. After the ceremony, our protagonist and his knight head back to the mansion. Ivan asks what he intends to do now that his father is gone, leaving the future uncertain. The young man begins to pack, telling his knight to do the same, as they are leaving immediately. Ivan is stunned by this development and asks if they are abandoning the estate for good. The MC clarifies that's not quite the case, they are simply relocating to the southern part of their territory. It dawns on the knight that they are moving to the small village of Rodmill. The protagonist confirms and the pair departs in a luxurious carriage toward their new home. From a balcony, the older brother Leo watches them leave with a scornful smile. He feels triumphant, having rid himself of both his younger brother and his father in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, in their new house, our young man is in the kitchen, fixing breakfast. With surprising skill, he whips up some delicious-looking French toast. 3 days later, life in the village of Rodmill has begun on a peaceful and very tasty note. But our protagonist soon finds himself back at the mansion for yet another funeral, this time for his older brother. He can't believe he's back in this place, wondering why everything is deviating so drastically from the game. Looking at the coffin, he learns the cause of his passing was a blade through the heart, leaving him utterly shocked. Alan begins to ponder who could possibly have the courage and power to take down his brother Leo. He attempts to ask a guard about the incident, but the man recoils in terror. The guard stammers an apology for making eye contact before his friend yanks him away. Our young man is baffled by the extreme reactions of everyone at the funeral. His knight, Evan, approaches and Alan asks if he's managed to find out anything new. But Evan bypasses the question, his expression grim, and asks if the MC was the one who destroyed Avalon. The protagonist's silence is all the answer his knight needs, and he stares in disbelief. The story then flashes back to the day Alan departed for the village of Rodmill. Ivan had asked why he chose a small village over a major city. A dark look had crossed the young master's face as he explained that Rodmill was the final piece of his plan. He detailed how he had saved the 5 sins from their cruel and tragic fates. In doing so, he had also prevented the disastrous future where they would destroy the world. Thanks to his intervention, the children could now grow up in peace and live normal lives. The young man revealed that Rodmill had no ties to the original story but still contained a family villa. This made it the perfect sanctuary for him to live out a quiet and luxurious life as a noble. But Ivan was no longer so naive, stating that his master always has a hidden motive. He knows that whenever the young man wears that blank expression, he's concealing something important. Realizing his knight is sharper than he looks, the protagonist tries to shut down the conversation. From the mansion balcony, the older brother had watched his sibling's carriage depart. He had briefly considered whether he should just eliminate his younger brother for good. The young man viewed him as useless and had even contemplated poisoning him after their father's passing. But since the boy was heading to the frontier, he decided there was no longer a need. He was, however, extremely irritated by the recent troubles Avalon had been causing. Ultimately, his younger brother was just one big inconvenience. He then summoned his henchman, Alman, and ordered him to tail the carriage closely. Alman, Liu's right-hand man, asked if the order was to eliminate the young master. The hare turned surprised, not understanding the reason for such a direct question. This was confusing as Alman was the type to follow any command without question. He couldn't comprehend why his most trusted subordinate was suddenly questioning his orders. Losing his patience, the young man snapped that his job was simply to obey. But before he could finish the sentence, Alman attacked him without a shred of mercy. Leo was in total shock, unable to process the betrayal from his own right-hand man. The henchman then revealed that, as it happens, he has a fondness for war games. Remarking that it's been fun, we discover that Alman is actually Hayden of the Blue Moon. They follow a creed from the Red Moon, which states the Blue Moon is their sword. And if anyone dares to harm the Great Moon, they will not hesitate to retaliate with full force. With a final clean strike, Hayden completes his mission, protecting his master. By this creed, the Blue Moon is authorized to act independently to ensure their master's safety. Hayden delivers the finishing blow, and the hero's body collapses lifelessly to the ground. He had waited 2 long years to hear those words of betrayal, giving him the justification to act. Leo threatened that his men would seek revenge, but Hayden simply declared the end of Avalon. He added that it was a pity, the Great Moon had offered a chance, but it had been squandered. From the rooftop, the agent watches the moon before departing to finish his task. The next morning, the sun rises over Rodmill, and our protagonist wakes up in high spirits. For him, this village is a true paradise, and he wishes himself a good morning. He is adoring this peaceful life, waking and eating whenever he pleases. The young man can finally savor the life of a true noble, complete with every comfort. He even considers opening a French toast business, pleased with how well it turned out. But his tranquility is shattered when Evan rushes in with an urgent telegram for his master. As our protagonist reads the message, the piece of toast falls from his mouth in shock. The telegram summoned Alan Palacio to return following the passing of his brother, Leo. And just like that, the MC's idyllic paradise lasted a mere 3 days before chaos found him again. He returns once more to the mansion, only to be greeted by the preparations for another funeral. The young man can't understand why everyone is acting so strangely and fearfully around him. His knight then bluntly asks since when he had become the mastermind behind Avalon. In essence, he had stumbled into a never-ending simulation of bizarre misunderstandings. Desperate for clarity, the protagonist begs his knight to explain how he ended up as the villain. Ivan explains that since Leo passed away right after their departure, the MC has the perfect alibi. This revelation shocks the protagonist, who is stunned by how perfectly the events aligned. And with Avalon now dismantled, there's no one left to raise issues about Leo's passing. Through this series of events, he has inadvertently become the ruler of the county, with a master-level assassin supposedly under his command. The young man is completely overwhelmed, with no idea how to even begin to untangle this mess. He recalls the Blue Moon and asks Ivan if they could be the ones behind everything. However, the knight reports that the Information Guild finds it highly improbable. He explains that the group never leaves bodies, but they always leave behind a signature mark. In contrast, Avalon's members were all cut down by swords in a scene of pure mayhem. Our MC finally understands why he's the prime suspect and is believed to have a sword master in his employ. He remembers the Blue Moon didn't exist in the game, which only adds to his confusion. Meanwhile, at the Blue Moon's hideout, Yushia asks if any traces were left behind. Ryan confirms she left nothing and Sealang boasts about her own efficiency. The fox-eared girl adds that their main task was just clearing away mountains of bodies. Suddenly disappears and reports that Avalon's remaining force is number 456. He notes this was exactly as their leader predicted, earning him praise from Hadan for his accuracy. Radan then brags about mercilessly slicing every enemy in half. Yuchi expresses her satisfaction, declaring the plan a perfect success. And so Avalon, the massive organization that once held sway over the kingdom of Asteria, met its end at the hands of the Blue Moon in a single night of relentless slaughter. In just 5 days, Avalon was completely obliterated, reduced to nothing but dust and ash. But Radan interjects that the cleanup isn't finished, much to Yushi's confusion. He presents a document revealing more nobles with ties to the criminal organization. Apparently, the Duchy of Alchia is deeply entangled in their illicit affairs. Yushia falls silent for a moment, but her expression reveals everything she's thinking. With a look of cold fury, she knows exactly what must be done next. The other members of the Blue Moon tense, preparing for their next cleansing mission. Raiden says with a sinister smile that they will handle everything very, very quietly. Yushia then lets out a relieved sigh, pleased that the plan is proceeding as intended. She asks if the Information Guild is handling the narrative discreetly. Ryan confirms they are not connecting the incident to the Blue Moon in any way. All the guilds are attributing the massacre to the hell created by the Sword Master. Yushia then orders them to maintain vigilance, as word of this must never reach their master. Dis points out that their master's own blood relative tried to harm him, so they merely acted first. She sternly reminds him that they are a sword, and a sword must not think for itself. The Blue Moon must only move upon the command of their master, the Great Moon. She warns them never to disappoint that person, for he knows absolutely everything. Deuce observes Yudia, unable to comprehend why she is so fraught with worry. In his eyes, a person of her power should be immune to anxiety and nervousness. The boy takes the document, acknowledging that he understands the message and their next mission. Everything they do is for the Great Moon, the person who is special to them all. Back at the mansion, our protagonist is completely drained, unable to bear any more work. Following the funeral, he was buried in paperwork and family business for a solid month. With the game's timeline now altered, the full weight of the hero's duties has fallen on his shoulders. Suddenly, vassals arrive bearing even more stacks of documents, sending him into a spiral of despair. The young man doesn't get why everyone is working so hard now when they used to be so lazy. The vassals misinterpret his frustration as anger, and out of fear, decide to work even harder. Our MC realizes that the rumors of him being a ruthless mastermind are inadvertently motivating his staff. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room, Evan is roasting sweet potatoes in the fireplace. He remarks on how surprised he is by his master's progress over the past 2 years. The young man had reached the second circle of magic in just 2 years of self-study. Typically, reaching that level would take 4 years, and only for someone born with a natural gift. The protagonist explains he practiced relentlessly out of anxiety and a need for self-defense. Furthermore, the technique he's using requires incredibly precise and delicate mana control. Yet, he wonders about the point of having a power that remains so weak and unstable. He never imagined he would actually wield magic, and the initial idea had thrilled him. The young man had assumed that once his plan was complete, he'd be safe to study at his own pace. But the harsh reality he discovered is that his mana pool is laughably small. A mana pool is like an athlete's physical build, an innate trait you're born with, and it is so minuscule that it severely caps his magical potential, leaving him deeply frustrated. The mana pool is so small that even the most rigorous training cannot compensate for it. However, the MC has an ace up his sleeve just as Evan enters with an invitation to a formal dance. The young man is perplexed by the invitation, wondering what on earth a formal dance is. Upon arriving at the venue, he finds a lavish ballroom teeming with nobles dancing and socializing. Our protagonist and his knight make their entrance, dressed in elegant and striking attire. But the young master already feels exhausted just from the sight of all the high society folk. This ball is a regular gathering for the nobility in the southern region of the Asteria kingdom. Since he is poised to become the next count, the young man decides to use the opportunity to network. To his astonishment, however, all the nobles seem to be actively avoiding him, some even fleeing his presence. One of the guests nearly faints just from accidentally making eye contact with our protagonist. Completely bewildered, the MC watches as the nobles part ways around him as if he were carrying a plague. Evan tries to reassure his master, but the young man insists he isn't the least bit bothered. He had anticipated this, knowing the Palacio family is regarded as the black sheep of the East. But our hero came prepared and has a plan to turn the situation around. He takes a glass of wine and prepares to deploy the social skills he has been practicing in secret. Approaching a lady, the young man compliments the wine's unique flavor and distinct aroma. With a gentle smile, he mentions that he would love to acquire a few bottles for his own cellar. Unfortunately, his smile comes across as so forced and sinister that the poor woman is terrified. She stares at him, wide-eyed, nearly dropping her wine glass from sheer terror. It appears our protagonist's social skills still require a great deal of practice. The panicked lady assures him she will speak with her father immediately to arrange for the wine. Other guests begin whispering that he's even worse than his brothers, a true monster. The MC tries to rationalize the situation, telling himself the young woman must simply be very shy. Back at the mansion, Even reports that the young man's list of gifts has grown yet again. The new acquisitions include a fine horse, rare teas, precious metals, and the aforementioned limited edition wine. The protagonist is frustrated, realizing the Palacio name is even more infamous than he had thought. Fueled by rumors that he eliminated his own brothers, he has become a person to be avoided at all costs. Seeing no hope of making connections, he decides to step out for some fresh air to clear his head. A mysterious red-haired woman watches the young master with a thoughtful expression as he walks away. Her eyes follow him as he makes his way to the ballroom's balcony. Out on the balcony, our hero contemplates where his perfect plan went so wrong. Suddenly, a feminine voice calls out, asking if she might have a word with him. The young man turns, surprised, wondering who would dare approach him in the middle of the ball. He can't make out her face in the dim light, but the voice intrigues and slightly unnerves him. The girl steps forward and introduces herself as Loria, the third daughter of House Alcia. The MC instantly recognizes the name, knowing this family plays a major villainous role in the game. He greets her awkwardly, while aware that the Alcia family is synonymous with trouble. House Alcia is one of the game's 3 great villainous families, known as the Black Sheep of the North. The protagonist figures that anyone willing to approach him must be far from ordinary. Yet he has no memory of this particular girl, which piques his curiosity. Loria gets straight to the point, her eyes filled with desperation as she asks for his help. She implores him to lend her his strength, and the MC looks back at her with a dark, intimidating gaze. The girl then reveals a chilling secret: she is about to be the target of a deadly assassination attempt. There on the balcony, she confides in him, explaining the reason for her despair. The young man listens intently as she lays out the delicate circumstances she's trapped in. Lori explains that as the daughter of her father's mistress, she had always enjoyed his affection and protection. But now the Duke of Alcia has fallen gravely ill, and her shield against the world is gone. She reveals that her own sisters are plotting to have her eliminated to secure their inheritance. The MC recognizes her story as yet another grim battle for survival in this ruthless world. It finally clicks why he doesn't remember her. In the game's original timeline, she was already gone. Loria then formally requests Alan's aid, but he immediately refuses without a second thought. The young man is already juggling too many problems and has no desire to get entangled in another family's drama. He reasons that even if he wanted to help, he lacks the special powers to make a difference. Our hero turns to leave, abandoning the girl on the balcony to face her uncertain fate. Before departing completely, he looks back and tells her that something good will come her way. He expresses his hope that she finds a powerful ally to help her survive her sister's wrath. From a distance, the red-haired woman observes the exchange, concluding that Alchia has approached the Great Moon. She considers alerting the Red Moon, but another cloaked figure appears and stops her. The figure states it won't be necessary, because if their intelligence is correct, she is not alone. Apparently, Loria is not the only member of the Alchia family with no connection to Avalon. This means Loria is not one of Radon's targets and is, for the moment, safe. The figure then remarks that this simplifies matters, as the other Altias will soon be eliminated. From their perch above the ballroom, they watch our protagonist and plan to cut off his information flow. Their goal is to ensure that news of the Avalon incident never reaches his ears under any circumstances. Back at the ball, the MC senses an odd emptiness in the hall, as if he's surrounded by an invisible barrier. The red-haired woman approaches and greets him, and for a moment, he feels a flicker of hope for socializing. But as he turns, he recognizes her face from the game and realizes she is yet another suspicious character. The young man concludes that anyone who initiates conversation with him cannot possibly be a normal noble. He greets her formally, and the woman expresses surprise that he knows who she is. Our hero smoothly replies that her fame precedes her, and the woman seems flattered. The narrative then provides a recap of the three great villainous houses of the Asteria Kingdom. In the north stands House Alchia, infamous for its dark secrets and hidden power. In the east is House Palatio, our protagonist's own dysfunctional family. And in the west are the degenerates of House Zenonia, a family of dangerous criminals. The woman is Kalia, the eldest daughter of Count Zenonia and a major player in the underworld. If the Palatios are a street gang, the Zenonias are a more sophisticated and dangerous corporate syndicate. Our MC is internally panicking. He just wanted to make a few connections for a peaceful life, and all he's finding is trouble. He compliments her beauty as a way to deflect, but the woman graciously accepts the praise. Kalia then invites him to a more private conversation, which sends the young man into a silent frenzy. He politely declines, citing the many watching eyes and his desire for a quiet evening. Kalia smiles, remarking that he is just as the rumors describe, a man of mystery. She bids him farewell, hoping they will meet again, which leaves our protagonist feeling uneasy. The young man is left wondering about her intentions after the unexpected encounter. The cloaked figures watch from above, noting that the Avalon incident has been successfully contained. But a new concern has emerged, as Kalia seems to have taken a keen interest in our hero. They resolve to monitor her closely and eliminate her if she poses a threat to their master. Our protagonist and his knight arrive at a desolate canyon, and even asks if he's certain about this. A spark of excitement appears in the young man's eyes. He's finally found his true objective, the Southern Labyrinth. He declares that this time it's for real, noting how much easier the location was to find in the game. In truth, the entire reason he came south was for the Labyrinth of Whispers, a secret dungeon. Within, one must solve the puzzles of 8 chambers to claim a priceless artifact as the final reward. Our MC still remembers every step in solution and is eager to finally start powering up. Seeing the labyrinth's entrance in person, with its glowing runes, leaves him genuinely impressed. Even though he had grown tired of this place in the game, experiencing it in reality feels completely different. Ivan asks how he knows of such places, and the young man cryptically replies that he used to visit often. He jokes that he has his secrets, prompting Ivan to ask him not to jest with such a deadpan expression. Suddenly, a monster bursts from a wall, and our hero immediately recognizes the danger. He warns that the creature will crush them if they fail to solve the chamber's puzzle correctly. The protagonist walks toward an altar, steeling himself to tackle the first challenge. Ivan watches his master, amazed at how he can remain so composed in such a perilous situation. Ivan reflects that even after 4 years, he still can't figure his master out. The knight is baffled by how his master knows so much despite having never left his estate. Nevertheless, his trust in the young man is absolute, as following him has always yielded positive results. The MC cringes at the gruesome sight, nearly wrenching his neck to look away. At last, the final puzzle is solved, and they enter Labyrinth's final chamber. The protagonist instructs Ivan to take only the black ring, leaving all other treasures behind. Evan questions the value of the plain ring, but the young man insists the other jewels would only attract trouble. Our hero has finally acquired the Ring of Restriction, an artifact of immense power. He assures Ivan the path back will be safe, though his knight remains skeptical. But upon exiting, they find themselves surrounded by stone golems, the labyrinth's ancient guardians. Ivan panics but immediately prepares to fight, ready to protect his master at any cost. He declares that he will handle this himself, but our young man has a different strategy in mind. Their top priority is escape, and he tells his knight to get ready to run. Evan knows his second circle magic will be useless against these powerful golems. The protagonist then activates the ring's power, and a brilliant light engulfs him. A mysterious voice echoes, stating that he has inherited the Great Will of Nueriala. The voice instructs him to declare the 2 restrictions he wishes to enact with the ring's power. The MC recalls that this part of the game presented a menu with selection options. He realizes this voice is the labyrinth's reward, the power of restriction itself. And now, he holds the ability to impose 2 new rules upon the very fabric of the world. The Ring of Restriction is an artifact that grants raw power in exchange for placing limitations upon its user. The voice's reality is palpable, and our protagonist prepares to make his first decree. He declares that henceforth, all magic incantations will absolutely require the hand seals of Babylona. The voice then asks what he seeks to gain in return, and the young man requests the power to alter the laws of the world. His wish is granted, and our hero feels a surge of new power flowing through him, invigorating his very being. He then prepares to state his second request, as the voice listens intently. The young man decrees that for all incantations, only the sacred words of Babylona may be used. When the voice asks what he seeks in return, he repeats his desire for the same power as before. For a moment, the mysterious voice seems to hesitate, making our protagonist apprehensive. He grows confused, wondering if he made a mistake, even though he had mimicked the skill icon perfectly. As it turns out, choosing both the seals and the sacred words unlocks the highest possible magical attack power. The request is accepted, and the voice commends him for remembering the teachings of the great forgotten god. The voice addresses him as the Heir of the Will, a title that leaves our young man perplexed. Evan shouts a warning to his master, reminding him that his second circle magic is no match for their foes. A golem rears back to strike, but our protagonist stands firm, confident in his newfound abilities. He knows he can no longer rely on his own feeble magic, he needs something more. Channeling all his mana, he conjures a sphere of lightning that glows with a weak intensity. He acknowledges that no amount of training could push him beyond this natural limit. But now, armed with the power of restriction, he is ready to test his new capabilities. He unleashes the sphere of lightning toward the golem army, waiting to see the outcome. As he invokes his new power, he knows the Ring of Restriction will exact a heavy price for its use.